Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is episode 352, and it is a director episode.
Dun dun dun.
It is not a pool party. It is a director.
That was way off.
Yeah, that's what we echo every time you do something special.
I kind of wanted to as well.
Maybe
but I
what
stopped
you
myself.
echo. Yeah, you stopped yourself. You have self-control. At least one of us do, right?
I do not. I have none.
Before we get to our director episode and welcome him on the show with us, I've got good news. The remake of the 2007 original Witcher game is now in development.
Heard about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it had been previously announced that this was going to be a thing, but now we've got some concrete evidence that it is being a thing, and it's being built up from the ground up. That's better. In Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah.
Super early in development, so we don't have much else other than that. But exciting.
Well, I mean, it's another Witcher game that I can play and not beat. You know.
Me too.
None of us have beat it.
When did Gwent start? That's my question.
Kenny.
You know it's the real question.
Probably in the first one, I guess.
Then I might play it.
Didn't they announce CD Projekt Red? Didn't they announce a lot of Witcher projects? Like that's one of like 4. Like there's
Did they?
new trilogy that's going to be coming out, and then like some remakes and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I
doesn't
don't know the
surprise me.
names.
I mean, everything got popular, but with there being the big mainstream Netflix show that a lot of people watched, I'm sure they're gonna milk it.
And a cyberpunk show too
Really?
that people are liking.
And The Last
That I
of
didn't know
Us.
about.
And they're just turning everything into a show.
Our generation is nerds. We finally have the money, and we're getting catered to, and I'm not complaining.
I'm not a nerd.
I tried to play a 7-year retro gaming podcast. I tried to play the original Witcher a few years ago because you know that I've got a problem. So before playing Witcher 3, I wanted to play Witcher 1 and Witcher 2.
You do have a problem.
I stopped because Witcher 1, and this is weird coming from a retro game podcast person, but I stopped because it felt too old. Like it was...
Yeah.
It didn't feel good.
But, yeah, it's old in a way that was like not
Obnoxious.
there's no like charm to it
Right.
because it's old. It's just like like Witcher 3 is so much better.
But remaking it from the ground up in the same engine, I mean,
Yeah.
if it is reminiscent, I mean, Witcher 3, everyone agrees on two things. You don't play it to beat it, you just play it. And then 2, it was great, right? Like Nolan and I think loved it, but we've never beaten it.
A lot of people call it the best RPG
Ooh.
like of all time.
So if they're able to do something comparable to the original Witcher, and I would imagine after that Witcher 2, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only travesty is that it hasn't been done earlier. It's a real crime. Like in our retro game of the week, Yakuza.
Overview.
First of all, we would love to welcome to the show for the first-ish time, the Tasty Yogurt.
Taste
everybody.
Welcome.
You know, the most important question is, where did your name come from? I mean, it's your birth name, I would assume.
Oh yeah, so absolutely. Given to me by my parents, Yo Play and Oikos.
Nice.
No, so the actual story, it's kind of long, so I'll try to break it down. But
Hold on. If it's inappropriate, then we'll just bleep it out. So go ahead.
It is
the whole thing.
It is not. I mean, it's subtly, but it is not completely inappropriate. So when my friends and I first got Xbox 360s when it first came out, we know we needed gamer tags. And we know that the most proper gamer tag is a noun and adjective. So everybody got their names, and my name actually started as Lethal Yogurt.
Oh.
So, and then it just kind of progressed from there over the years. It went from Lethal Yogurt.
Digressed.
Yeah. Well, yes, digressed. That might be a bit better.
Regressed?
It gressed. We'll just put
It
it that way.
There it is. There was some gressing.
So Yeah, it went from lethal yogurt to tasty yogurt, and then eventually the tasty yogurt.
Nice.
I
A little
like
more
it.
official.
I like that journey. My Xbox gamer tag was noun, and it was Bacon Thief.
Nice.
Or
Kenny?
I called you Bacon for a long time, just
Yeah.
like when we were gaming, just because of that.
that's not. I don't think that's what Nolan was asking.
He didn't have an Xbox
I know he was
gamer
asking
tag.
for my gamer tag, but I come
doesn't
into
give that out
Discord if
freely.
you need
He
to know
doesn't
it.
give that out.
I'm not giving it broadly on the
He's
air.
amazing.
He wouldn't even give us his Wi-Fi password at his
when we were
house.
at his house.
I gave you
hate him.
guest access to a real Wi-Fi connection, and that wasn't good enough.
Kenny's the type
No.
of guy that's like, let me type it in for you.
Yeah, and then he,
Okay, Tasty, how did you find out about New Game Plus? What was your first episode? Like, what was your introductory to our podcast?
So I was at work, and I had just finished a D&D podcast I was listening to, and decided, I kind of want to listen to some sort of retro podcast about old games and stuff like that. So I started searching for retro game podcasts, found this one, listened to the first couple of episodes, and realized, man, these guys kind of suck. I don't really like how they talk about games and stuff like that. So I stopped listening to that one and then found New Game Plus.
he got us. Dude.
I was like, ouch.
but
no.
true.
But I did start with the very first episode. This
Okay.
was back in the beginning of August. So Earthworm Jim was the first episode.
So you overcame
And-
those early episode hurdles.
I did. I understood because like you guys had about 300 some odd episodes at the time I listened, and I knew it's always early. It's always going to be not so great audio.
Yeah.
But it was kind of fun to go through and kind of hear your guys' journey and how you progressed and got more popular and got more people joining and things like that. So it was kind of fun listening to the games that I used to grow up and play, as well as kind of be there with your guys' journey and see how it progressed and came all the way up to this point. So it was a lot of fun.
It's so cool.
Nice.
It
Yeah,
really
it's
is a
great.
time capsule. You're not proud of everything, but it does show like where you came from and how you got to where you are,
What if you would have listened to episode 300 something and it's still that bad? Never got better.
Man, okay, Tasty, you could have selected any game that was 15 years old or older that we haven't already covered, and you chose this one. You chose Yakuza. Why?
So I've actually never played this version of Yakuza, the PS2, the original version.
Right.
I played its remake, Yakuza Kiwami. And this afforded me the opportunity to play the original and see where it came from. And I have a lot to say at the end about the major differences between the two. I actually have a pretty bold claim about how I feel about Yakuza Kiwami, which I'll let you guys know at the end. But I chose it because the remake that I played was actually the game that kind of really brought me back into loving gaming, because I do collect video games, and I kind of got into a slump where it was like I'm not enjoying the games as much as I used to. And then I played Yakuza, and it felt so different that it really got me back into it. And the funny thing is as soon as I completed Yakuza Kiwami, I immediately went online and bought the rest of the entire series, because I
Wow.
needed to know what happens after that.
Yeah.
I love when you find a game like that.
Yeah.
I get in so many modern gaming slumps. I'm in one right now, and I just hate games. And then I find one, I'm like, all right, I love games.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a cycle.
Absolutely, it is, because it just feels like every game's the same. And then I found this one. I'm like, this feels so different that now I see what games can be again. And that's what did it for me. It helped me out.
Well, for those of you who are not familiar with this title, Yakuza is a PlayStation 2 title, developed and published by Sega, came out in 2005 in Japan, and then released internationally a year later. And lots of times we, make fun of games for having a titular character and kind of just being about it. This game is 100% one of those games that just lives up to its name. It is the story of Yakuza. Specifically, our character follows Kazuma Kiryu. Can we just in advance apologize for
That was good.
all of our attempts.
That was a great pronunciation.
was
I was
fine.
yeah,
surprised.
it was fine.
That was
But
pretty
even-
spot on, actually.
Even the way we say Yakuza, I think is real like
Yakuza.
anglicized. Yeah, like we're bad, and some people care.
Some people
and so
know that
if
yeah.
you care, I'm sorry. If you don't,
But some of the voice acting in here, I think, mispronounces some of it. At least not perfectly.
Oh,
So I think
Dude,
we have
voice
some grace.
acting.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that one.
Or, you know,
we'll have that whole
We're fine.
conversation. But like, unsurprisingly, you are a character in the middle of a crime syndicate in. It's not Tokyo, but it is.
It's a fictionalized
fictionalized
district
yeah, it's a
of
fictionalized Tokyo, a portion of Tokyo. The Kamurocho district is the games district, which is based on a real place, the Kabukicho district in Tokyo.
Right?
Look at me
You're
trying
nailing
so
it.
hard.
Perfect, yeah.
And it's third person, like an action brawler, kind of RPG-esque adventure, and all of the things that you would expect to happen as part of a Japanese crime syndicate happen to you.
And can I just say that this is a great idea for a video game to follow
Yeah.
like a Yakuza and a family within a clan. That's like sick.
I think it's a great idea for any medium. I mean, a game, it makes it fun,
is, man.
interactable, but like
Movies, though.
there's a reason why like The Godfather, and obviously it's a different kind of thing, but it's a similar
Sure.
kind of thing. Like
Similar, yeah.
following a character that is not good,
No.
but that is goodest of the bad, and
Yes.
the goodest
There you
of
go.
the bad.
Goodest of the bad.
And
that
then
like
He has much more personality than you first think as the game goes on. And what I love is it's like, yeah, you could do a crime game like this, but you could just make it all about the crime itself and
Like
going around
GTA.
killing and getting, yeah, exactly, like GTA.
Yeah.
But Yakuza has much more depth in that you don't realize on the surface.
Yes. Definitely.
Did you get any vibes from any other games that we played before, that you played before when you came into this? Were there any other games that were like, man, it's kind of like this? Obviously, it's not exactly like any of those, but Shenmue. Okay, that's what I've got down as well.
100%.
Yeah. That's probably the closest.
A lot of Shenmue, and then I did get. You already threw it out there. It's different, but I did get some Grand Theft Auto vibes as well. I mean, especially with the mini walking around town. You don't get to just beat up anyone you pass like you can in Grand Theft Auto, but
right being the
of.
kind of game that you wouldn't play in front of your parents as a kid.
Oh.
Like that
Same
whole like
category.
Or is it
mature
a vote?
vibe. Yeah, it is right. Like that's GTA-ish as well. We also played a couple of fighting games that sort of lend themselves a little bit more to this brawling style that I
Def
kind of
Jam?
was thinking of.
Far from New York?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm not kidding.
No, for real. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of a mix of all of those together.
Yeah.
But it's a good mix. Like it's flavors
yeah.
of each one without leaning too heavily into any of them.
No, it's very much
That's
a
a good way to
stew
put it,
of
yes.
those things, and it has spent some time simmering.
Gameplay.
it's action adventure, but I really think the game is split into two different categories throughout, and the way that it merges those two or blends those two makes this game unique from the other titles that we've mentioned. So I think you've got one big category is your story events, and then the other big category is kind of just your adventure mode. And you've got battles in both of those that are similar to one another, but those are kind of that's the pacing of this game. In adventure mode, you're moving throughout that district, you partaking, and the district feels alive, right? Like there's
Definitely.
there's quote unquote side quests that can happen as you pass people or talk to people in the district. But you're moving around and you can get into different battles or do different fetch quests or whatever. Go into different businesses and buildings, everything from like a little, grocery store to more adult
loan shark.
themed stores.
Casino.
Or and then in story mode, it's heavy story game,
yes.
and you are going between different cutscenes that are giving you story to fights within those story that progresses the narrative that is taking place. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And I did not expect it to be a story game, and I would call it a story game above
Big
all
time.
other things we've mentioned
Yes.
in the best way possible. I mean, they do it well. I expected the GTA stuff. I did, because of the theme of the game, and I've never played it, and yeah, I just thought it would be more of a brawler, but it's absolutely such a story sink. Like, you're just in it for the characters, and I was surprised by that.
You
Definitely.
can tell they care about that immersion and wanting you to feel like you're in a story in a lot of ways, but the way that sticks out to me is that even in these massive brawls of tons of random people, even like minor character brawls, everybody has a name. Like, you're literally
That's a good point.
like these are characters. They all look different. I mean, fight a little different. They're kind of just, cut and paste. They're your putties, a lot of these fights, but even then, they give people unique character names because they want you to feel like you're in it and you're having these interactions with real people. They didn't have to do that.
One of the things that they continue to like point to story elements is the fight cards that show up before your battles. I know it's a cover for a load screen, to a different thing, but
it works.
I love them. They get old, I guess, after a while, but it will tell you who you're fighting. So it's like versus Yakuza or versus Street Thugs
Haruka,
or in story mode, it's versus the character's name, but above it their title and what clan they're affiliated
and their
with.
logo.
Yeah.
Dude, even if they're the lone shark at the beginning, it's just their logo, like that guy's business. He keeps trying to fight you, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
I loved the splash screens, and that's a good point with what Kenny said too. Yeah, everything has a name, and nothing felt throwaway. Although you do get into so many fights, some that feel just kind of there, but like it reminded me actually of musicals. You know how those just be in a normal situation and then someone jumps on a table and they're like start singing about the weather. Like, dude, it made me laugh so often, but I was down. I was like, okay, let's fight.
Yeah, because you're just running around the city, and then all of a sudden you just hear off the side, "Hey, you!" And then all of a sudden this dude in a suit just running at you. And you're like, "Oh crap, here we go again." The only thing I did not like about having so many fights is there was one point I got sort of soft locked because I ran out of healing potions or whatever, and I got locked into a fight where I was almost dying. I was trying to get to a store, and they were able to basically put me down within 2 hits, and I couldn't get out of the fight and had to reload my last save.
You either have to fight that fight perfectly, because one of the nice mechanics here is that if you try a fight and fail, you can obviously quit the game and reload, but it also gives you a chance to replay that fight. And so
in the same state, though.
If you have health potions or if you've got enough health and can like get your way through a fight, you're okay. But yeah, I had a couple situations that were close to that as well, where I was like, this could be trouble if I don't like guard myself a little bit.
Well,
right.
And you've got some options there because there are solutions. The solutions are, yes, do what you did and, restart an earlier save, or the other solution is get good.
Okay.
That's true.
It's not a realistic suggestion for some of us.
Yeah. But because the way that they do these battles, and I'm not saying that it's realistic really, but like you can go through every battle without taking damage if you're good enough, or if you can master the somewhat janky battle fighting mechanics.
You might be able to do that if there was some sort of, I guess, lock-on is what I'm looking for.
Yes.
There's a lack of a targeting system,
which is easy to do.
So sometimes I throw a big punch, and then a massive uppercut at nothing.
It's like, because
you get stuck in those combos where you're just punching in a straight line. You're well, crap.
Absolutely.
And then you gotta dodge out of the way.
Absolutely.
It happens so often.
Biggest complaint of this game, because they do give you tons of button options, and you do have one that faces you in the general direction. It's supposed to face you in the general direction of your closest enemy. But even if it does that, it just kind of puts you on the same lane as, and so if they move, you're not locked on. You're not locked on. And if R1 instead of was face an enemy and was lock on to the nearest enemy, game changed. Like that.
Surely that's in sequels.
Surely. Surely that's in sequels. And I don't go into full detail, Tasty, because you're gonna talk about the main differences later, I would assume. But I would. My guess is with Kiwami, is that what it's called? The remake of this, that there is a better kind of lock on.
Not just a better lock on, but a better combat system
Altogether.
entirely.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
see, I have a love-hate relationship with the combat system here. It is super clunky, but when it works well, it feels cool.
It's rewarding.
Oh yeah.
There's some
As soon as you start landing those punches, God, you feel so powerful because you're just knocking them down on their ass, and then you stomp on them, and it's great.
Oh, the stomp was good too.
Something satisfying about picking up a random object just anywhere near you and thrashing someone with it.
See, that's the thing. I don't think they weren't reaching really hard with the combat. Like the system's very. I mean, it's not a button masher. There are combos, but it's not fighting game combos. It's very simple brawler style combos, and they feel good. And you can pick up an object and beat somebody with it, or throw them, or the specials, which are just like Mortal Kombat style, like very violent, satisfying enders that you can do, and it's like smashing someone's head against a wall or a table. It's good.
Yeah, and then you can gain experience while unlocking even more of those movesets and different ways to use your weapons and finishers and things like that, which is also pretty cool.
Yeah, you've got, so it is an RPG style
That's the
game.
RPG
in
style,
that way, you're gaining experience from battles, from doing your side quests, from doing story missions, and you can spend those points on technique, body, or mind, I believe are the three different categories. And each one does something different. It can do anything from increasing your health pool to giving you a new ability, or allowing you to dodge faster, or break out of grapples more easily. Like, it really made me feel more powerful, more and more powerful. By late game, I had almost maxed out all three of those categories, but between doing that and learning abilities from another guy in the game, which you have to find, and if you're not using a walkthrough, you might not be able to even find, you like, I had tons of moves at my disposal.
Yeah, I liked that. I did feel like there wasn't any real choice there. The way they increased costs of your sort of leveling up made it that you were going to kind of just level everything anyways, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people lean really hard and specialize, but it felt good in that you were getting it. But I always want a little bit harder RPG. You know, like, I want to do a playthrough this time where I'm like just a spirit build, and then like I want to do a playthrough this time where I'm just a body build, and like that's not realistic. But I'm being very nitpicky.
It at least made those mini encounters make sense a little more. If those would have just been fights that just happen and you get nothing, that'd be bad.
You needed the reward.
The fact that you're hoarding XP and assigning it is nice,
And the other cool thing about the XP is you don't get it just for getting in fights either. Like, you can, I don't know if you guys discovered this, but you can go into restaurants, eat some of the food there, and that gives you experience for each new food that you eat. It's not a lot, but it's cool that they added that. It gives you incentive to go into these places to do that.
Makes it a little more immersive. And they were going for immersion here. Like, modeling this place after a real district and having people walking around, and like, we'll get to that whole conversation, but they went hard into that mode.
I mean, let's kind of have it. There's a lot of like side quests that you can do, and I guess they all reward XP. I didn't do.
Nolan didn't like those and didn't do.
No, it's not that I didn't like them. I felt pressed for time, and so I didn't feel like I could jump. I was playing Diablo a lot this week, right? But I like that they're there because, back to what Kenny's saying, the city feels alive because of it, because of these little sub stories. I think is what they call them. Yeah. So I like that.
Yeah, and you can run around and you just see these little speech bubbles from people just talking randomly, and it's nothing that really adds to the story or what you're doing. It's just like we keep saying, it made the city feel alive. Like this, like Kamurocho is its own character. It's not just a generic place. It is a part of this whole game. It is what it is.
Tasty. I have in my notes where is it? Hold on. Come on, where is it? I can't find it in my notes, but it was something along the lines of, it reminded me, I know this is going to sound absurd, it reminded me of, oh, here it is. Similar to a game like BioShock, the world itself is such an interesting character. I ended up loving this little district at the end of the game. It's its own character. It was alive, and it changed throughout time, so there's different people interacting. There's some people, side stories, that you come back to, sub-stories. There was this one guy that wanted me to train him to be his, like, Aniki, I think, to be, like, his older brother and train him. And so he kept doing these little missions, and I'd have to get him out of trouble, to the point at the very end of his little sub-story, there's, like, 5 or 6 stories with him. At the end, he was like, you know what? I don't want this life. It's too hard. So he, like, backed out.
He's like,
yeah. What's awesome is you were saying how Kamurocho like changes over time. That's actually true for the sequels too. So as it goes on in the sequels and stuff, the city actually does change. There's new businesses. There's businesses that close. There's even side stories. The side stories that you've done in previous games, they come back in future games, and you get to see what happened to that person over the years because of what you did for their story.
Good.
That's super cool. I love that dedication to the immersion.
My understanding is that you're in a different district in each of the games or in most of the games?
No, so Kamurocho comes back in every single game. There are much more future games that do add other districts you can go to, but Kamurocho is primarily in every game.
Okay.
And they continue the world building in those cutscenes too. Like we said, the game's very story heavy, and so you're getting cutscenes constantly, and they're great. And you get to see just like Dustin was watching me play last night, and there's an interior that you're in talking to someone. You can see out the window, and the world is just, the lights are flashing, like people are walking by, there's noise, and it really takes you into that world. And I love when games can do that. It's not easy to do.
That's my favorite part. Like Kamurocho, I don't know why, but I keep coming back to that just because it's out of every game I've ever played in my life, I think Kamurocho is the one I can distinctly remember every piece about it. Like I could talk about another like city like Grand Theft Auto, like Los Santos and all that other stuff. I can tell you bits and pieces, but I don't remember everything. But Kamurocho, you ask me anything about it, and I'm like, I know exactly where that building is. I know
you don't need a
is.
map.
I'm like, there. Exactly. Yeah, I know where to go all the time just because I live that city. It's so great.
So interesting. And I think they do that with every element. Even the random item system, or not random, but I guess the item system, like instead of having lock boxes on the street of the district, which that's not realistic, they had you finding these missing keys that people had dropped, and then you can go back to a central location in the middle of the map that has lock boxes like a district would, and you can use those keys to unlock the boxes and get an item.
Very clever, very immersive.
So,
like, come on.
So you're never finding items out in the wild. You're finding keys, which could certainly happen, and then you're taking those back and getting the items. It's just it's a small thing, but it's huge.
And that follow me here. That one reminded me. That part of the game reminded me of Resident Evil in the fact that your inventory is not. You're not given a ton.
Yeah, it's
I
limited.
mean, maybe you are. I didn't get as far as Dustin. I think that I won't reveal, but that part felt a little more, not survival, that's not the word, it's not a survival game, but it made it feel like I was just a guy, like I wasn't some super powerful guy. I mean, you are in some ways, but you're also just a guy trying to survive in a Yakuza world where there's danger and people want to kill you.
Exactly. You're not running around with a bag of holding after,
or guns, They
made this city so realistic that if they added that might break it a little bit. Wouldn't be much, but it's still cool that they added that.
No, you got pockets, and it kind of feels like it.
Yeah, exactly. Like stuff doesn't stack. Like if you have 9 healing items, then you have 9 healing
Resident Evil
items.
pockets. Yes.
Exactly.
And you've got a lockbox at your base where you can store all the other items from, like,
okay,
I mean,
so y'all follow.
It's Resident Evil for sure. Did you know, again, going to the realism, but putting it into a gameplay mode that works, did you know that if you go into a bar and you drink alcohol and you become drunk and then you go out into town, 2 things. One, your heat, that by the way, your heat is that
gauge.
special gauge, that you're building over time and you can use to do context sensitive moves, which are awesome. But so that builds more faster more faster. That builds faster in battles, but you're also more likely to get in random encounters on the streets because people see that you're drunk and want to take advantage of you.
Yes.
That's
Exactly.
so
They didn't have
interesting.
to,
They didn't
though.
have to.
That's
No,
good.
no, those
That's
details, details across the board, and not just in the immersion. We've talked about that a lot, but in the fight stuff too. The brawling is fun, but I think what makes it pay off the most is those big moments. And they could have handled those a lot of different ways, but doing the like short QuickTime events, which normally is not a thing I love. If you tell me like we're gonna
Interesting.
play a
Same.
game and it features QuickTime events, I'm probably gonna roll my eyes and be like,
I'm out,
yeah. But like it was pretty cool.
Okay. Kenny and Nolan both dislike QuickTime events, QTEs. I'm getting that vibe. Is that correct?
Generally,
yeah,
yes.
I that's why I haven't played God of War before in my life.
Okay. I love QuickTime events. Love. And I know I'm in the minority
Why?
here, I guess. Well, they're not going to keep putting them in games if I'm in the minority, but I hear a
Someone
lot
has
of
to
complaints.
enjoy them.
Right.
Yeah.
They still are though.
I
Like,
do.
They're everywhere.
I could get why people don't like them, but for me, if I get a button correct and then you show me an incredible animation of doing something amazing, I love that.
Okay, I like them if I like them if you don't do what they're telling you to do and you get to see them like get hit and die in really funny ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tasty. QuickTime events. How do you feel?
So it really depends on the game that they're in.
Okay.
So if it feels like a time pressure thing where like I do like God of War where like I'm pretty sure one of the games you're trying to like hold something up so you gotta like mash that button. Like I kind of feel like, oh my god, I'm gonna drop this if I don't do this. I do kind of like that. But in Yakuza, what they did is you're in the middle of a fight and you knock somebody down and you've got like a second maybe to hit square or triangle to get in another hit, which feels in some way a little more realistic because it's like if I'm in a fight and I knock somebody down, I have about half a second to try to stomp on this guy's face before he rolls away from me. So I kind of like it that way because it felt more intentional rather than like, hey, you have to do this or you fail.
It's hard for me to even call it a QuickTime event here.
Right. It feels just more like an extra action that if you
Yeah.
are skilled enough and time it enough, you can get it in. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't feel like a quick time event. I feel like it's almost a whole separate thing that doesn't really have a name.
Yeah, it's kind of just caked into the battle system here because like you don't have to use it. Like you can get through the whole game not using it, but but it does more damage and it looks cool. Like there are times I ended up doing a thing where like if I could just get them on the ground, like laying down, which is pretty easy. You could do a punch, uppercut, right? And then they're typically on the ground. And if I use that triangle for the win when they're on the ground, then often my guy would get on them and I would just, like jam square over and over again and he'd just be punching, and it does so much damage. So it's worth doing. If you've got a bike, like an actual bicycle in your hand, you can press triangle and just smash it over their head.
Yeah.
Or if you're near a wall, it's just it feels good and it looks good for me.
The variety of items were great as well. We've
So much
mentioned
fun.
that, but they do extra damage. Like they really are super effective, and there's just enough of them, and they're just varied enough that it was kind of nice.
I also
There are-
love that when you use them, it singles it out with like this little miniature, like not really a cutscene, but it just takes a moment and just gives you a different angle as you just smash like a pipe into some dude's face, and it just I don't know, it just feels over the top where they didn't have to do it that way. It feels more dramatic than it needs to be, but it's still awesome.
Yeah, they
It
leaned
fits.
into that whole vibe hard of kind of being
There-
so strong and just like brawling, but it works.
There were a couple instances where I would finish a fight by throwing what I was holding, and it kind of does a slow mo.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Tekken, where like they die in slow motion, and every time I'm smiling and laughing because I just threw a golf club at somebody's stomach, and they're like, "Ugh,"
And slowly
and they
die.
die.
Aged.
There's so much realism here. When we've talked about the immersion, and I think a big factor contributing to the immersion here is the detail. And what I'm talking about is graphically and in animations and in just the realistic world that you're in. I wrote down something that I thought was like, it blew my mind, and it's really funny because someone that's not into games that might be listening will be like, why is that fascinating? But there's a cutscene. It's at the beginning when you're getting interrogated, and someone pushes a chair into the table, and the chair rolls into the table and bounces back off of it and kind of rolls for a second and spins like it normally would. The lamp wobbles when he does that, and it feels like a movie. Like the whole game feels like a movie, and that attention to detail in the animation and the overall graphical presentation kind of blew my mind on PlayStation 2.
Yeah. I mean, PlayStation 2 is where, in my opinion, things start really changing in game realism. You know, before then, a lot of the realistic stuff, I mean, I'm thinking like early Tomb Raider for PlayStation 1, like, does not look good.
No.
And, but here in PlayStation...
Not into those polygons?
No, but in PlayStation 2 era, they're able to just take that to a whole nother level, and they do that here. Does everything look good? No. There are still polygons, but they're more hidden. But the amount of drama they're going for in this game, it's over the top, but I feel like they do it well and present it well, from the cutscenes like you're talking about to the shading and lights and ambiance of the neon lights flickering in the sky as you're running by. And I mean, this story is dripping with drama in every element, and I think it works. I think it's fun.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I do not think the one thing that I do not think aged very well, the voice acting.
You're right.
Yeah, let's talk about the voice acting.
Poor Mark Hamill. I don't know if you guys know, but he voiced Goro Majima in this game. The crazy guy with the snakeskin jacket, that was Mark Hamill.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I had no idea.
I'm looking at Dustin's face. He looks so confused, but I promise you, look it up.
The guy that beats one of his own guys with an umbrella at the beginning of the game?
That was Mark Hamill. And I love Mark Hamill.
Yep.
Absolutely great actor, great voice actor. This just was not the role for him.
Interesting.
Okay. Yes. I wanted Japanese voice actors and English subtitles. Mm-hmm. That's what I wanted the whole game. Why didn't they do that? Probably because that wouldn't have sold. People are weird. And
in the remake, you'll get that.
Good, because that, like, it's distracting sometimes. Like, everyone's voice was wrong. It wasn't like the voice actor was poor. It worked, but it clearly was like, all right.
Okay.
It's the one thing that sort of kind of broke immersion, because you're in this heavily Japanese oriented thing. I mean, the Yakuza are a Japanese game. You're in a Japanese city. And then all these actors, it felt more like an American mafia style in the voices is my opinion on that. And that I think just kind of fell off a little bit. But I think the game did everything else so well that I could ignore that just enough.
And I don't disagree with anything that's being said, but something about the presentation here feels soap opera-ish, which is not the best of the best when it comes to delivery and when it comes to acting. And so yes, it was distracting. Yes, at times I laughed. Yes, at times they had a voice recording session and then just copy pasted lines of dialogue into other parts, and it was noticeable and awful. But I think it works with the soap opera drama charm. I don't think it's the right choice. I do agree. I mean, like, to get it even more Yakuza, and you said in the remake, man, if they do that, like, that's the way to go. But
yes,
it didn't distract me too much from the drama of what's going on. It just made it a little bit more thicker, like, drama. I found it somewhat enjoyable.
I can see that angle, too. I can see that angle.
It's not good, though.
No. With the voice actors themselves did fine.
Yeah.
It's just the wrong game for them. That's all it was. Anyways.
Right, exactly.
And it's funny because, and we can talk about the music more extensively if we want, but, like, the game ends with this isn't absurd, and you might think maybe it fits, maybe contextually they bring it in. It doesn't. The game ends with a rendition of Amazing Grace in English from a Japanese singer, and It's odd, but like it really
Link
is.
me.
It doesn't
Link me that.
It doesn't work. I will link you that. I don't know if it does. So by the way, I just kind of said I finished the game this week.
I'm proud
It's
of you.
impressive.
So
Yeah.
I think I put in 19 hours or so. And
Oh, okay. I was thinking it might be a little longer.
no, I think
If you focus on the main story, it's actually not too long.
Okay,
But if you
got
get
it.
distracted with all the side stories and stuff like that, it could definitely take much longer.
when I could bring up my stat sheet, it gives one at the end. But like I think I did 29 of the sub stories. There's probably 30 something. So I definitely missed some, but or didn't do some, but I did a lot. So I kind of leisurely went through it and maxed out 2 of my 3 abilities and got to level 9 on the other one, so almost maxed out all of them, and got all the way to the end, and so I was able to get a full experience this week along with Amazing Grace at the end of the game,
that was
To
weird.
cap it all off.
and able to make my do that even with the fixed camera angles that would cause you to stop playing this game from beginning to end.
Okay.
And I will say, as far as since we're still on age, as far as the story goes, the story really grabs onto you. It hooks you in, and you really care about what's going on. Like you get this feeling like I have to go through this story. I can't let these side stories stop me. I got to figure out what's going on. I got to figure out where all these people are. I got to figure out why people are trying to kill me, so on and so forth. And then you get this mission of save the puppy. And it's like I
love that
have
mission.
to do this. There's no distracting me on this. Get out of my way. I will fight all of you and to save this puppy. But yeah, it's just the whole story for me. It grabbed onto me, and it's like I have to get through the main story. I can't do anything else. I need to know.
There is a little mid-game lull there was to me in that you've got all these big missions going on, but then like in order to get from point A to point B, you have to do all of these sub-steps. Like, oh, she gave away the fake cards, so you have to go over here to this club. Oh, she's not there. You got to go back to this club. There's some things that just kind of artificially fluff the time in the game, but the story at large, yeah, definitely solid from beginning to end.
Yes.
And-
Yeah, go ahead.
And while I'll agree that you get a save the puppy quest, I'm going all in, and you're not going to play around. Nothing's getting in the way. I will say there were a few moments, including the puppy and orphans and justifications in general, to make your bad guy look heroic and like a good guy, so that you would sympathize with him, even though he's still a criminal and
Still a
going
very
around
bad
and
guy.
doing like atrocious things. That kind of had me just like rolling my eyes. Like, I get it, you want people to emotionally connect, but like, I don't care that we're going to retrieve money from these loan sharks that are like slightly bad people. Like, I'm gonna do it either way. That's the story. That I felt like there was a lot of like, oh, but it's okay, but becauses and justifications, and I'm like, just lose that. Like, you don't need it. It's a crime drama. Just let them be criminals.
This is Sega R&D. You have to have an understanding of who they are and their history. Like, it's such a Sega thing to do that. Like, to have like a lighthearted, stupid side quest. Well, I want to go back to one more thing, Dustin. Were you taking a shot at the load screens that happen in between screen transitions?
That's part of it. Like when you're moving around town, one of the things that makes it rough is that when you go to a new area, it changes the angle, but not the angle of the mini map, and it has a pause because it's loading. It's PlayStation 2. Yeah, that's rough.
I guess I was used to it a little more from Resident Evil, but Resident Evil does not have the pause. It felt like your disc was skipping. You remember when you'd be playing and you'd hear the disc go, and then like it would come back? That's what it felt like.
It's the fixed camera angles in town that got me most. You can't change them in town. In battles, you can change them, so you can kind of move it around, move the camera around. Not with your right stick, which, by the way, the game has a right stick because all it does is zoom in and zoom out of the mini map. So they could have given you a lot more control there, but they didn't.
I love fixed camera angles. Love them.
Ooh.
Yeah, and like the fixed camera angle is okay-ish, but it's not okay when it transfers from one screen where it's at a certain distance, and then the next screen you're like really far away, and I'm like, wait, which side of the street am I at? Where the hell am I?
It was very jarring. It's probably easier to implement than like a moving camera, and certainly lets you do some like cinematography kinds of vibes that they certainly
that's
were
why I
going
like it.
for. But it comes with some downsides of just jankiness that like
jank.
you're gonna notice as you play
I
this
love
game.
jank. Though.
Every time I was going to the Serena bar, to the hideout up the stairs, I was running
Yeah.
into every wall. Like, I mean, it was bad. We've already mentioned, but Yakuza is not the only game in the series. It spawned an entire series spanning from 2005 to current day, numerous spin-offs and remakes, and even Yakuza Kiwami, which is the game that Tasty you actually played first. So if you're cool with it, could this be the opportunity that you tell us some of the like big differences between the two?
So I'm going to save that during my
I
verdict
wondered.
phase.
Okay.
Like final summary.
I like
Okay,
it.
Cool.
That's fine. Okay, then answer this question. Since you first came across Kiwami, have you played other Yakuza titles, and do they hold up?
Every Yakuza title I have played has held up, except for one spin-off. And for those who are fans of the Yakuza series, I don't think I need to actually mention it. But for those who aren't, it's called Yakuza Dead Souls. And it's a spin-off where they tried to go with the whole popular zombie route, where everybody turned into zombies and you're fighting zombies. And it kind of sounds cool, but when you play the game, you're like, actually, this is pretty awful.
Spinoffs don't count. We'll say that the main line is untainted. We'll give
Nice.
them that.
Yeah, the main storyline from it actually starts with Yakuza 0. So they actually made a prequel to this first game.
Love it.
And then went on from there. So you get a lot of good context that explains it.
Cool.
And then it goes on from there, I think, to Yakuza 7. And so from 0 to 7, you actually follow Kazuma the entire time. So
Oh my gosh, serious?
it follows him. There are
I
other
like
other characters that join in too, but what's awesome is how early we were talking about how Kamurocho ages. So does Kazuma, and so in Yakuza 0, he's like in his early mid-20s, and then by the time you're on the 7th game, he's in his 50s.
That's cool.
That's
And
great.
it's just showing his
Love.
progression through the Yakuza and like what he does with that life and
That's
how
so
he gets
good.
out of it, what he does with his life and things like that. It's great.
I was a little worried when you said prequel, and then was thinking, are we getting the same character? Because I knew it mostly followed him. I was worried we were going to get orphanage.
Orphanage?
brawls,
The son
and I was
Yes!
like, nah.
just beating up kids at the orphanage.
So
like, give me
good.
your lunch money.
So good.
The hard life of Kazuma Kiryu began here at the orphanage.
If you want a copy for your PlayStation 2, Yakuza is going to run you $18 used or $37 new. Not bad at all.
Not too
Whoa.
bad.
I'm getting it.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each of our episodes, we give our final thoughts of the game. We will conclude with Tasty, allow you to have the final word. There's no particular order here. We'll just go age before beauty. So, Kenny, if you just want to start us off on your final thoughts of Yakuza.
Yeah, sure. This one's kind of outside of my normal palette, but there is definitely some fun to be had in all of just the constant crazy brawling. I do think that the story itself is probably what will make or break it for most people, but if you can handle how over the top it is, and Dustin, you already stole my analogy. I said that this feels to me like a Japanese crime soap opera. Like it's just so over the top, but it knows it. Then you're gonna have a fun time with this. It's not a perfect game. There are definitely some frustrations and moments where the gameplay itself is a little clunky, but the environment and story are compelling. And so if you're okay with an adult themed game set in this environment and those things sound appealing to you, then you're really gonna like this one.
Nolan?
Well, I'm beauty, so I go after you.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
No, I'll go. Okay. I'm jealous of Dustin this week because he beat the game. And so I'm very interested to hear what he has to say. I think I know. For me, I got to chapter 4 where the game, I guess, kind of opens up for the first time where you can kind of explore more so than you could before. And I'm absolutely going to finish the game. I don't know how long it is, but this game is it takes you back to 2006 when it came out, but instead of feeling like, man, I'm playing such a retro game, it's so impressive that they pulled this off in that year, and it is as immersive as it is on a PS2 with PS2 graphics, and I love it. I think it is so cool. I think it's so cool. It's a cool character, game, world, story, and I love it even more now that you told me that it follows the same character in all the games. Usually they'll ditch a character for a new one and it's fine, Final Fantasy, but yeah, this game's really cool. Really cool. You should play it.
It is a product of its time, but it is a good product of its time. So you're going to feel some of the aging. That part of me wishes that I had your experience, Tasty, that I would have played Kiwami this week, because from my understanding, when we're about to hear it from you, Kiwami takes what is a good game and just makes it a great game. Like, it takes out any of the like tension points and just smooths those over. Nevertheless, PlayStation 2 was my era of games. Like, that was my console. I never played this, but and don't know if I would have as a kid. There are some adult themes here. There really are. Like, not only from the brutality, but there are some adult themes here. So that even made me uncomfortable. And there's even, like, I don't know what's going on, but there's grown men slapping women. And I guess that's probably not the worst thing here when you're stabbing other people and, like, I don't know. And you're a criminal, but...
You're a criminal, yeah.
You're a criminal.
But I was uncomfortable many times throughout this week, but not as much as I was just sitting there enjoying it. The little district is so alive and so much fun. It is so, I said the drama is so thick to the point of being a soap opera, but it worked for me, and I certainly want to play the other games now in the series. I had so much fun this week. Like I said, beat the game because I was enthralled. I wanted, there's a lot of story, and I think it is going to hinge on the story, your enjoyment of this. But it worked for me. Had a lot of fun with it. I think you will too. Tasty, give us the final word.
All right, so Kenny, I'm going to borrow your soapbox for a second here.
Have it.
So Yakuza is easily one of the most dramatic games I've played in quite a while. The story is interesting with a lot of different twists. It's got a serious tone, but the game's not afraid to throw in some of the smaller side stories and little things that you could do that feel a little more lighthearted and sometimes a little funny. It's told so well with dramatic cutscenes and great characters with all unique personalities, many of whom are very memorable. The combat is a bit lackluster. We all know that, with targeting being the most difficult thing. But once you do land those combos, like, you feel really good. It's enjoyable despite its flaws here and there, but it just overall, it's an incredible game. In my opinion. And with all that being said, I do give it NGP, but I'm putting an asterisk next to it because it did get its remake, Yakuza Kiwami, in 2016. And just so you know, Kiwami means extreme. So basically, Yakuza Extreme is the name of it. And if you play this remake after playing this, you'll be able to say, or at least I can say with absolute confidence, it's the perfect remake of a game. That I believe that every developer who want to remake their game should look to this as the gold standard. And I'm going to stand and die on that hill. But you can do many more activities in Kamurocho, interact with more people, there's more side stories, challenges to complete. The voices are Japanese with English subtitles, Nolan.
So much
got
better.
that going for you. So much better. And it feels so much more authentic because of it. They actually used the same exact cutscenes from the original game, just updated and added a little more to fill in any story gaps and things like that. There's no more weird camera angles running around the city. They replaced that with a somewhat third-person behind the character view, and the combat is entirely overhauled. You can actually switch between 4 different fighting styles now. One being super strong, one being fast, one being somewhere in between, and then your fourth one is one that you actually learn over time through a system called Majima Everywhere. So Crazy Goro Majima, he will just randomly pop up in the city and just challenge you to a fight. And the more you fight him, you gain experience points specifically for your dragon style of combat. And
cool.
it's so much fun.
That's kind of what I asked for when I was whining about this game earlier, is like specific styles. But story is beat for beat the same story. So I'm still saving a puppy. I'm still having a weird stripper try and murder me with the shotgun.
Yep. Everything in the story is exactly the same. It's the most faithful remake, while getting rid, like, every single complaint we all had here today is gone from that game, and then changed into something great. You can even go into the arcade where you were able to play the UFO catcher, the crane machine, but now you can play games like Outrun and things like this in this game now. And then there's a couple other arcades. I don't really know what the games are, but you can do more. So it's like they kept all the great things and then added more to it. So it's like I said, again, it's the absolute perfect remake. Changed my mind.
I have one last question for you. Should I play Kiwami before playing the other ones, even though I've already played Yakuza?
Play Yakuza 0 first, then move on to Kiwami, and then go from there.
Okay. That's what I'm doing. That's going to be the next few months of my life.
There you go.
All right, so those are our thoughts. What are your thoughts on YouTube? The poll came out at 48% said yes, Yakuza is worth playing today. 7% said no, and 45% have never played it before.
7% are from the rival clan.
Or 7% maybe think play Kiwami instead.
That's probably what it is.
We had many people write in and send us their thoughts on the retro game of the week. Shane said, Yakuza is a series that suddenly seemed to explode onto the scene when Yakuza 0 came out. Had never really heard of it, then heard there's apparently a bunch of games in the series. I never had a chance to play it until this week, and well, many people seemed appalled when I said I was starting with Yakuza 1 on PlayStation 2. I found it fairly enjoyable, enough for me to keep playing, I think, though, with many caveats. The difficulty kind of caught me off guard. The encounters seem constant, and music for them has an intro that just feels kind of annoying to hear again and again and again. The camera is completely out of my control, very frustrating. Certainly a game of its time with many of the issues that came with it, but it's mostly painless annoyances to a game that seemed to have a neat world and story that I'd love to experience. I personally think I wouldn't recommend starting here, though, from what I've heard, Yakuza 0 or Kiwami would be better starting points. So ultimately, this seems a bit of a mixed bag, but I think I wouldn't give it NGP since it seems to have been left behind, and I don't think it really needs to be played in this day and age when you can experience a series with superior remakes.
Okay, I get all that, but I do want to defend the original a little bit, and this goes for a lot of games.
Fair.
It shows the beauty of the console. And yes, I do think there's beauty to PlayStation 2 and that era. I do think it's totally worth going back because it's not bad at all. It has a lot of fixes in the remake, and I'm sure it's amazing, and I'm going to play it later, but the original's pretty dang good.
It is playing Super Mario Bros. With scan lines the best? Probably not, but there's something about that is worth maintaining and keeping.
Exactly.
I know it's different, but I feel you.
That's good.
I wanted to give one other here that was on the fence, or this one might not be as on the fence. Hot Tamales said, I can't tell if this game is being facetious. The gameplay is ferocious and faltering. The story seems fraudulent and furtive. The foul language is nearly fanatical. I may be fastidious when it comes to games and perhaps fractious, but this game was just offensive. It's like Fight Club in GTA had a frumpy baby. Overall, though, I wanted to like this game because everyone else was doing it. Just like when I was young and learned funky words that made fusty people fretful. With such a frigid storyline, I can see why some people would like this filthy and fiery title. But for me, this is a fallacious, faded, flaccid, flimsy, flavorless game people would do better to forget. And if you don't like my F words, then you can fight me.
You get an F. You get an L. That's an L review.
No. Oh, yeah. We're doing V for W's now.
V for dubs.
But
L's are still
sticking with
L's.
L's.
Wait, that's Seriously, a weird take. I don't see how you can go that extreme in the opposite direction.
Maybe it's just for the R-rated content because he seemed to have a lot of F words in his and didn't use any of the F words from the game.
Maybe.
All right, but then we've got people that enjoyed the game for what it was. Clint said, I've always been intimidated by the Yakuza series due to the sheer variety of stuff it offers. I can wholeheartedly say that after this week it earned a place in my gaming library and I'm looking forward to playing more. The game certainly suffers in its original state from poor camera, gameplay controls, and just feeling a little older than it should in 2005. I kept thinking of games like Silent Hill and Parasite Eve while I was playing this week, but those games released anywhere between 3 to 7 years prior to this one. Jank aside, I still have a lot of fun beating up street punks, failing at the crane game, and getting lucky on the slot machines. It's a goofy and sincere game with a story that reminds me a lot of something like The Sopranos for more reasons than just being about the mob. The remake, Kiwami, seems to be a step up in many ways and make it a smoother gameplay experience. So if you're looking to get your hands dirty, and you should, definitely look into playing that version.
I'm a pretty hardcore Sopranos fan. I'd love to hear those reasons, Clint, other than it being about Mafia.
Hey,
I'd love to hear that.
Tasty, you gave the one version of Kiwami to this, but going the opposite direction, do you feel like what was good in Kiwami was still present in the PS2 version?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The city still feels alive. They took every aspect that was good in the original and they put it back into Kiwami. It's like the only thing that really changed in Kiwami were all the problems, but they kept everything else with it. It's kind of like the trope of the pupil surpassing the master, where it's like the master has like gone through all these battles and stuff, and now he's down on one knee about to perish, and the pupil comes up and says, "No, father, I have this," and then steps in and completes the mission. It's kind of like that sort of feeling to me.
Dig it.
Great.
On theme.
And then finally, Garlisle said, Yakuza's unique genre mix and look into the less glamorous parts of Japanese society leave a mark, and it's brimming with so much content and drama that it's no wonder it spawned a franchise. I was having fun with most of it at first, except the combat, which is okay but rough and quickly became my chief complaint. I got sick of swinging wildly at nothing or being unable to defend myself against groups, things that remedied over time but never felt great. That beef quickly turned into me trying out the remake after a generous friend hooked me up, and it immediately solved the problem with super fluid gameplay. The remake kept the original story intact, almost shot for shot, with the change being just adding more. While this speaks to the high quality of the original, it's also such an improvement that I'm not sure there's much worth going back for unless you really want the almost hilariously vulgar English dub.
I do want that.
I mean, it's the soap opera. Thank you for sending in your thoughts on the retro game of the week. For now, we're going to put aside Yakuza, but we do want to say thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. Tasty.
Yeah.
Of course.
A lot of fun. And we're going to randomly select the next retro game of the week that we'll be playing for the next 7 days from our retro master list, randomizing now. We're going to be playing a game published by Nintendo for the Super Famicom, developed by Game Freak, a 1993 side-scrolling puzzle game.
Okay.
What?
Japan-only release, but the game is entirely in English.
Again?
Okay.
The game that we're going to be playing is called Mario and Wario.
I've never played this.
I've never heard of it.
I want to say I have, but I might be lying. Mario and Wario? That does not roll off the tongue.
Mario and Wario. We're playing this side-scrolling puzzle video game.
Japan only.
That only came out for the Super Famicom in Japan.
Cool.
Okay.
I'll give it a
I
shot.
mean,
Well, you
yeah, I
have
would
to.
hope so. You have
It's
to.
our job. Find a copy of Mario and Wario and play it along with us this week.
Wow. Join our Discord server and get plugged into our community. Discord.gg/newgameplus.
I want to say a big thank you to those of you who support us on patreon.com, including a new face coming around these parts this week. Ellis joined us as our newest producer.
Ellis.
So thanks, Ellis.
Hey.
We also want to say thank you to all our other producers, including Adam, Alex, Marlene, Antonin, Ben, Dan, DH Bowser, Francesca, Gimbin, Jared, Joey, Jordan, J. Robert, Justin, Clint, Nicknack, Corey, Laway86, Maxima, Mr. Latte, Sage, and Shauna, Subsonic Demon, Thomas, Unbedavable, William, and Zion. And of course, a big Halloween time thank you to our director level supporters who truly go above and beyond, including, of course, the Tasty Yogurt himself. Thank you for this episode, for
much.
supporting the show, and for coming and just sharing some of your time and a really, really fun game. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks so much.
And a big shout out to our other director level supporters as well. Bro Jim,
In alphabetical
Carlisle,
order.
Shane, no, Super Hypered, Daniel, and Brunt as well. That's new right there. That Brunt.
I think we announced
edition.
it on our anniversary episode, but we are
Oh
thrilled.
well, it's still new-ish,
It's new.
and I still want to shout him out because
Yeah.
I do what I want.
It's still got that fresh director smell.
That's right.
Yeah, just freshly opened.
Open it up and waft.
Okay, you can follow us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. Those links are in the show notes. Tasty, before we go, do you want them to find you online? And if so, where?
So I do have a Twitch channel that I'm looking to get back into after my long hiatus.
Nice.
So it's twitch.tv/the_tasty_yogurt.
Easy.
Wonderful. Get tasty with it. Needs to be your slogan. You can listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Mario and Wario. Until then, I'm still Yumi.
I wouldn't ever be allowed in a clan.
I'm Wafton Brunt.
Wafton Brunt, and that's Tasty. That's the, don't get it twisted, Tasty Yogurt.
The Tasty Yogurt.
And
Yum.
this has been New Game Plus.